Well, okay. Welcome to the Native Wellness Institute's 58 weeks of the Power Hour for positive, productive, and proactive wellness for all Indigenous and tribes in the lower 48, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. We'd like to thank Seattle Indian Health Board for funding a lot of the Power Hours. I am part of the Native Wellness Institute's team, and so in my language, Oki Sinatapi, how are you? Um, Nistu, I am. Nidaniko, my name is Makoyo Sakoyi. It's my second Blackfoot name. I was given by Roger Prairie Chicken on July 30th, 2017. So I'm almost 4 years old, eh? And guess what? I'm 65 years old. I have been celebrating my birthday for a couple weeks because when you uncolonize, the colonizer just want you to celebrate one day out of the 365. And what I realized in COVID is we should celebrate all 365 days for being alive. So I'm still celebrating my birthday. And I'm on Salish Kootenai territory. And so I will, I'm taking a language class from BCC, and Trace Yellow Owl instructed us to introduce ourselves like Nixista, no, Anista means my mother is Yaskriptadaki, Yellow Flower Woman, Betty N. Cooper. She's a Bolshu. She has siblings that are Polacks, and she's 82 years old. And hopefully, mom's watching. Hi, mom. Thanks for giving me life. Thanks for birthing me. Thanks for breastfeeding me. Thanks for checking on me. Even now, I'm 65 and I still got to call my mom and get advice. It's so beautiful. Okay, so Ninna Anista. My father is Monokini Pete Enalt, Prayer Chicken Chew Dance, Eagle Ribs, New Breast. And even though he is crossed over, dang, he's with me every day. I was just walking along the lake and remembering Dad telling me to take the pastascan, the tobacco, the homegrown tobacco, when you're going to pray. And he said, find the best black dirt. It could be badger dirt or just black dirt. And he said, when you put them together, you give your ancestors a smoke. And so we've been praying because we have a 3-year-old missing, Arden Pepian, on our reservation. And we've got rescuers searching every day since the 22nd. So I'm praying for that family. And that's my dad, Ninna Anista. And then so Natsika Anistaya means my grandparents are Sam Monokini New Breast Sr. He was born in 1900. And you know what's cool about Grandpa? He never drank any alcohol till it was legal on our reservation in 1953. So he had a lot of maturity. Because, as soon as you start drinking alcohol, you stop maturing. That's why you get 40-year-olds who act like teenagers, sagging around, chippying around, because they're still a teenager in their maturity. His wife was Awalski. And so any of you Blackfoot speakers, please, we've been trying to listen to Awalski. That was Grandma Irene, Bullshoe, Polak, Cooper. And that was her Indian name. And Grandma was just, like I said, she was a remarkable woman, just so phenomenal. She lived off the land with no money. She knew how to operate like that. And so she birthed my mom, breastfed my mom. And then, Natsika Anistaya on my dad's side. Well, that was Sam Newbreast on my dad's side. On my mom, my grandpa Sam married a midwife named Atstanikiwa. And Atstanikiwa delivered all the babies on the Blackfeet Reservation on the south side. The last baby she delivered was Snake Comes at Night in 1955. And bless his heart, Snake's not around anymore. But and then they made our women go to the Indian Health Service Hospital to have babies. So and then Nimtutu means like where I come from. And I've been thinking about that because, you know, they say heart butte, but Nimtutu, old iron pipe, and old Joe Boss, Joseph iron pipe, are right out there like where Craig Iron Pipe still lives, you know, in that area. And so I guess that's, you know, where I come from. And then, you know, when I die, you know, because like, you know, in COVID, where we think a lot about these things, I will be put up in a tree there, eh? And I'll let my ashes blow away. And then I'll go to Big Sandy. They saw the Sand Hills. Anyway, these were the things that I was told with the creation stories of Natusi the sun, you know, Scarface, of Napi stories. I grew up with those stories and I believed them. So when I heard these other stories, I said, oh, that's good. That's really good. Those other people have their stories. And this is really cool that maybe we could listen to each other's stories and ally. So part of today's topic is the verdict. George Floyd. The verdict is a legal issue. And the human issue is around all of us. And so I wanted to just dialogue with you. So, you know, tell me in the comments where you come from. Like, who were your great-great-grandparents? Did they come over on Allison Island? Who were your the stories of where you come from? You know, is it Iowa? Is it Lethbridge? Is it No Man's Land that won the Oscar? Born and raised in No Man's Land. Anyway, just kind of, you know, because I wanted just to share with you some thoughts. And I wanted to start with Maslow. Now, Maslow, and I've been noticing everyone that's in the helping field, in nursing, in clinical psychology, and all of those arenas where we help people. Whenever we went to college and wherever we went to school, we learned the hierarchy of need from Maslow. It was a foundational teaching within. So then part of, we're going to talk about systems within our education system. We really now, one of the things that we could do since the verdict is when you hear information, even when you Google it, always fact check it. Because with Maslow, and Maslow was cool, you know, I really wish, you know, maybe, you know, when I cross over, Maslow will be there hanging out with the Sixikai elders. Or maybe Narcissus Blood will be sitting there eating some raw kidney with salt. Him and Maslow will just be pulling that kidney, you know, when it gets all bloody and it tastes good. Anyway, just kind of one of our things to butcher and eat. So Maslow, I wanted to start there because, oh gosh, when I was working at the Eastern Shoshone recovery program in Wyoming, it was my first time out, and I was trying to socially adjust as I went. So when I was in Wyoming, but you know, in Wyoming, I've been treated really racist and really badly. Some cowboy told me one time he was going to cut off my braids and put it on his truck. But I used my words to defend myself. There was no violence. I used my words. And I guess I scared him with my words. But I was like, you know, this is my first time out since the pandemic, 14 months. And I was telling Jolene, you know, I said, this is an experiment. I'm like a guinea pig. I'm just like going out. So when I went and I was going down there, you know, I'm going to keep it to Maslow. I was asking all my ancestors to help me behave. even if they behave in a not so good way, in a racist way or sexist, or, they look at me and they say, 65, you must be an old woman. Bull. I'm just starting out. And so anyway, so then I was going and I started praying, and I even prayed to Maslow. Like, Maslow, I know you were with those elders. Can you help me? Every person that I meet, let me treat them with kindness. Let me treat them with dignity. Let me not react to how they are. Let me be that self-actualization of meeting people spirit to spirit in a good way. So I wanted to start with some Maslow teachings, and because I was just talking with Dr. Sidney Stone Brown. And Sidney, our prayers are with you, because Sidney was married to this beautiful, beautiful man, his Paiute. Beautiful, handsome, smart, sober man for 40 years. And they had children. He was like her support. And Sidney Stone Brown wrote a very it's a very good book called Native Self-Actualization, away from the transformation of greed. And so Sidney's husband passed yesterday. He died. And so in our way, it was, I just finished NWI, just was working with the Blackfeet Nation here where I'm at. I had to sleep on it before I called my sister, because I wanted to support her. And so we just had a long conversation, and we were talking about Maslow because she's so she has a book, and I would strongly suggest, it's self-published. So just Google Dr. Sidney Stone Brown, and her book is Transformation from Greed, which we're also learning in the pandemic, Native Self-Actualization. And so I wanted to start there. And in her book, which was really cool, is she had Maslow's notes from 1938. And then, our mentor who's gone, Narcissus Blood, Narcissus always spoke to us in many stories, because when Maslow, in a nutshell, was studying and trying to get his degree, but he was studying what is called deviant behavior. But think about that. Each culture, they prescribe or describe what deviant behavior is. And so he had studied apes and he had studied monkeys, and he was known as the monkey man. And let's see, she was from Cornell. Ruth Benedict from Cornell University was kind of like his overseer to help him with his research. And so I always think she was probably kind of one of those ones that was a trickster, like Napi. Because she told Maslow he had 2 surveys that he had to go out and test, but she wanted Maslow to test it on a culture or a race of people that hadn't been touched by much outsiders. So, where she sent him? She said, you should go to Sixikai, and in the dialect, Sixikai, I could just hear Charlene Prairie Chicken, she says Sixikai, so I like that dialect. And so she sent him to Sixikai to test his 2 surveys. And he didn't have a car. Because 1938, not everyone was privileged to have a car. So Maslow called upon his friend Jane, and Jane had a boyfriend, and they were from the Colorado area. So they came and got Maslow, and they drove him all the way up. So Colorado, up into the Wyoming, through Montana, and into Alberta, because Sixikai is it's east of Calgary and way up from Lethbridge. So that's where she drove Maslow and so that he could test his theories on deviant behavior. And in her book, that you can find out what were in these surveys. But sometimes one of the things he was looking at was why like apes rape other apes. But I was thinking, here we are with missing and murdered indigenous women in 2021. Here we are, we're little girls, little native women, big native women, medium native women, just native women. And are we treating them with kindness and equity and love, and not just discounting them as a disposable kind of human being? So Maslow, yeah, tell me where you're from. I don't look at a lot of the comments till after because but you know what? Native Wellness Institute, we're at www.nativewellness.com. You can request us because we're overwhelmed. So give us some lead time, a couple months, because how Indians are like, come next week. We're such good planners. But sometimes call Native Wellness will tailor. We have some trainings coming up. We're actually retreating because we're looking how we could best serve the tribes in the lower 48. In a couple of days here, our whole team's getting together, and so think of us, because it's the first time we haven't seen each other since December 2019. We've only been on Zoom together. So Maslow. Okay, so Maslow, when he went up to Sixikai, he went to the Indian agent. So remember, this is 1938. And by that time, the Indian agent, some were in charge. They bossed the Indians around. And then some were not in charge. They were, you would say, they allied and had respect because they met these elders. And so they would visit with them and discuss what's the best thing to do. So when Maslow showed up with Jane and the boyfriend, and the reason we know these stories, and thank God to Narcissus Blood, and even our little Napi Quinn, Ryan Heavyhead, used to kind of be with Narcissus all the time, is they what they had was Jane was, how like it's good women keep diaries and notes. When Jane died, she was way over 100 years old, and she had two big trunks with all the notes when Maslow came to visit the Blackfoot Confederacy to develop his hierarchy of need. And so I'm just sharing from best of memory from Narcissus Blood, because Narcissus helped a lot of us in the way that, one of the things 5 days before Narcissus passed, 5 days before he died, we were privileged to have a long Chinese luncheon. And I think Jim McNeely was there with Harry Barnes, who was our chairman at the time, and Alvine was there, his wife, and Deb Pace and myself, and Narcissus was he was asking, we were meeting because he believed we could heal through live skits and Napi stories and live, and that's still the belief. Through theater, you have to act out the new behavior. And Treaty 7 had happened. There was a really great drama that was when the ugly girl met Elvis, because Elvis Presley music helped all of the residential schools survive. So Narcissus, when he got us together, and I just want to say that because it has to do with us learning the language, and I think that's the part of the healing, is to learn 2 or 3 or 4 languages, and children can do that, and so can we as adults. But Narcissus, and in our way, it's kind of like they still call, even though Deb Pace and we're in our 60s, he would still say, "You girls." And so this is what he said, and boy, I've been in this transformation. That's why I will work on healing, and that's why I'm with Native Wellness Institute, because Narcissus said, I don't have no proof, but what I have noticed is that some of our people, and and he's talking about Siksika, Kainai, Abutsapikani, Nomskapi Pikani in the United States, were a confederacy. We've been here before Canada and before the United States. So he said, what I have noticed is that people trying to learn our language, like listening, and it's a listening, but it's almost a mind, body, and a soul. It's like you gotta feel the language. He said, what I noticed is that people who haven't healed, and like, someone's still on fentanyl, or someone who gambles all the time, or beats up their spouse, or neglects their children, that kind of stuff. If and they're not bad people. They just may be coping. That's their coping mechanism at the time. So they still can mature. But Narcissus said, he said, I don't know how to prove this, but I noticed that if they haven't done their healing, they can't hear the language. And he said, so you girls, that's what he said to. And Deb's like a clinician that specializes, with children and healing around the family. Has I don't know, last 30 years. And then my clinical work is, of course, with pregnant addicts, and then later on just heal. So he said, you girls, so you have to step it up. You have to step it up on the healing, because I think that stepping it up with the healing will bring back our language in a good way. And so I was just thinking about that, because sometimes you have to look at who's the instructor. Because like a common, you can tell who went to residential and boarding school. They'll just scold you. Hey, you didn't pronounce that right. Or they'll make fun of you when you're trying to learn to speak the language. And it's just because, they've been taught that the world is rules, and you got to go by the rules. And so I was just thinking. So think about that. So with Maslow, okay. So Maslow comes in at that time in 1938. He went to the Indian agent and he asked permission if he could use. I have to make sure my shift happens. NWI Power Hour, because shift is happening. I mean, like, get in it in a good way with this shift that's happening. And so Maslow, they went out to the Indian agent, and of course Jane and her boyfriend were there too, because they had the car. And the Indian agent said, well, I think we need to confer and check with the elders before you can go, before you can do this. So they went out with an interpreter, and they went out to Siksika, and they were just starting their Okan, their medicine lodge. And they were in a large, we call our teepees lodges, and they were inside. And so when they went inside, they put Maslow in front of the elders to ask permission, for these surveys. And when he got in there, and that's what Narcissus said. He said you can only imagine when he was in there, in the synergy and the energy from all those elders and their prayers, and the Okan. And you guys know when you're in ceremony, you know how it feels. And he said, so when Maslow stood up and he was going to ask those elders for permission, he became speechless. Like, he couldn't speak. And so, the elders like, okay, maybe he likes to pause a long time. Because anyway, so what happened was, his friend Jane, like all friends, she loved Maslow, and so she stepped in front of him and spoke the best she could with the interpreter. And Narcissus Blood said that she said something to the tune of that he was here, and he was going to talk to people, interview, but talk to people and record what they said so that it could be put down and saved way in the future. And and that's kind of like, like we know our prayers are for the next 7 generation or 8 or 9 or 10. A lot of prayers, like even, a comment, I was just thinking about that because we had a bunch of Blackfeet together for the past couple of days. And when they pray, they always, when they're praying for someone, like now, I was telling Sid, I said, they always say, I hope you have a long, healthy life and that you live to see your great-grandchildren joy in their eye. There's always, that's like a common prayer for, and so in this pandemic of racism, think about that. That sometimes, rather than react, and that's why I have my, there's no hate. Hate has no home here. I got that in Wyoming, so and I'm in my hotel room, and these are all, it's still birthday time, so I just love all of you, Gitsikako Mim, and I'm just sharing with you. And so this racism is pandemic. When Jane stepped in front of Maslow, and she said that, the elders invited him and kept him there all summer. And they kept him here all 1939, 1940. Maslow stayed with the Siksika, the Blackfoot elders. And you can imagine, because when you hang around elders, you get to love them. And they get to love you. And that actual act is what we need to concentrate on, is that love after the George Floyd verdict. So I'm going to keep with the Maslow because there's so much emotion. I was in Wyoming and I didn't look at my phone or TV, and it was my birthday, April 20th. And my friend Deb O'Rell called and she goes, "Here's your birthday present." And she told me the verdict. And all I could do was cry. I just cried. I just cried. And then I was with the executive director of the Eastern Shoshone Recovery Program. And like us people of color, we have to fact check. I said, "Kelly, turn on your monitor. I want to make sure it's true. I want to make sure that there was social justice done when that person held his knee for everybody in the world to see and murdered George Floyd." Because that's been done so many times. We have thousands and thousands of lynching of all of us. And, me, I cry, so that's, part of the healing is to cry. Because part of what Native Wellness Institute, we wanted to come on here and ask you, that's the legal issue, and what do we do now? What do we do now in 2021 when we want everyone to live a long, healthy life, to see the joy in their great-grandchildren's eyes? So Maslow ended up staying there, and there's so many stories. And one of the things, there's 38 tribal colleges and one international. There's 2 on the Alberta side, Red Crow College and then Old Sun College at Siksika. And they're now we've learned that you can get a lot of stuff online. Galt Museum at Lethbridge has a lot of stuff online. So there are other stories, but I wanted to stick to this, our human self-actualization responsibility. And so with Maslow, as he traveled with them, and I've said this story before and I'm going to repeat it again because in my transition out, I've been thinking about that word incomplete people. And when Maslow went to Clooney had a really good trading post, and that's how most reservations, whether you're in South Dakota and you go to White Clay, or whether you're in other rancherias in California, or in Washington, or the 19 pueblos. Navajo Nation is in 4 states. When you have an Indian reservation, or how Indian, sorry, I got this res accent, but too bad. Indian reservation. Usually on the Clooney was like on the edge of the reserve there, the Blackfoot Reserve. And there was a really cool trading post. And trading posts have things for that we've never seen before. They had, just even pots to boil water in, or mirrors. We never saw mirrors. We only saw a reflection in the water. So they would have things, and then they brought in supplies of that you could adorn yourself. And so I've been thinking about that. I was just thinking, like, sometimes I wear all my necklaces underneath, but to adorn yourself with elk teeth. But the Clooney trading posts would have little beads like this, trading beads, and so the elders were just taking their time. You know how when we go shopping, it might be a Walmart, but like when you go into an Indian store, and you like to take your time because you look at what they have and you can make something. And so the elders were walking around, and then that's when Maslow, because Maslow knew these elders, and Maslow was checking out that the proprietor started following all the elders. How that's what they do. They follow us around like we're thieves. We're gonna steal something. So they follow us around, and then they were very rude. They treated the elders, and they treated them rude and kind of terse, and but he had already learned that Blackfeets don't like confront right there. They'll look at the situation. It's like you look at a situation and you say, "What can I learn from this?" rather than react. That's a self-actualization kind of value or phenomena. So he waited, and he didn't, like interfere, or which, a lot of unlearning racism kind of efforts, they'll say to interfere. Like, why didn't someone jerk that officer's knee up off of that neck of George Floyd? We got some policies to talk about, or just jump in there and intervene. So anyway, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of interventions because people want to heal and they're not going to take it anymore. I just say that's where we're headed. So we went through it in the 60s, right? Those of you that went through the civil rights. So when Maslow waited, patiently, and the elders got what they needed, and they were happy, and they went outside the store. And outside the store, they asked, he was like, boiling because he didn't like how they were treated. So he asked the elders. He said, "How come you didn't say something? How come you didn't talk back? How come you didn't? They treated you. They were following you around in the store, and they treated you badly." So the elders just patiently waited and let Maslow get it all out, because sometimes you just got to let people get it all out. Rant, vent, rage, whatever, and when he was done, the elders told Maslow, they said, you don't have to pay attention, and don't let incomplete people change how you behave. Incomplete people. And so, I've been, it's not, like I'm not complete. I'm not perfect. Everyone at NWI, we're not complete and perfect. It's not about perfection, but it's like when you're incomplete, maybe that's when you're not mature enough, you're not self actualized, you're not spiritually grounded, and that's when you react with racism, sexism, ageism, hurting, intentionally rejecting and abandoning LGBTQ and Two Spirit. So I was thinking, again, the verdict is a legal issue, and now, in April 28th, and just think of it like 2021, we're still healing. We're healing as a nation. And thank God, our president is just doing a great job. Thank God we got Deb Haaland in there. Thank God that we got Kamala Harris. Thank God that we have in our own states, we have people that are self-actualized. And it can balance some of those incomplete people. So I thought and I'm thinking of my friend, Dr. Sydney Stone Brown right now, just because Sydney's just precious. When I was first starting out as a social worker, she was the first person that said to me, when someone is sitting in front of you and you're going to help them, you have to kind of assess if they're assimilated or if they're traditional. And there's like steps. It's not like a black and white. There's like several categories in between. They might be bicultural. They might be tricultural. And then I was thinking of some of my relatives who are 5 tribes. God, to self-actualize, how exciting. You get to learn 5 tribes. And then, then I was thinking of some of our relatives who get, hurt because they're not enrolled or the A descendant. And it's all of that kind of isms and lateral oppression. Because remember, the greatest weapon of the oppressors is the oppressed mind. And if they have brainwashed you to think that it's only a king and queen in charge, and these are less than, or that only the good people have money, that elitism. If we have to start saying, what do we believe, and how are we bringing up our children? What are we teaching our children? I guess I kind of have to I have to tell a little funny. My youngest brother, who will be 60, but it's still your baby brother. He's still my brother. Him and his wife, they're so cool. They're raising their grandchildren. And they got this really genius of a grandchild, 5 years old. I mean, he's technology wizard, just a brilliant, both of the grandchildren. But he's been having a hard time during the pandemic because he hasn't got to socialize. So they go out on hikes, and like when they're out, they wear their masks. Their grandma, sprays them. They're just, and now, even though they got their 2 shots and all this stuff, but they're still practiced because they don't want to carry the virus. So here's the little grandson. This is the good story. He was out, and he likes to conversate. He likes to strike up a conversation. So whenever he sees another human being, doesn't matter the color or anything, he kind of goes towards them, and he knows he has to stand 6 feet back, and he just says, hi, my name's Eli, what's your name? And, he just wants to have a conversation. And so just a couple days ago, he was out there. And again, here he is, pure innocent, but that's self-actualization when you just go out and meet people and start visiting and talking with them. So, he said, hi, what's your name? My name's Eli. And the adult just recognized, and he goes, oh, how are you doing? How are you doing? An opportunity to conversate. And so what he thought up in his 5-year-old mind, he goes, oh, I got COVID. He was trying to have but not really understanding what COVID is, but I got COVID. My brother had to come in. He goes, he doesn't have COVID. He just wants to visit with you. He just wants to know who you are. and he wants to share with who he is. So think about that, just that actualization. So when we were in Wyoming, even with our group, everybody's pretty dark. They can't pass for white, and so that's the difference when you're dark and you can't pass for white. You're like, they look at you, and we were all sitting there, well, thinking, what could we do in healing? What could we do? And I said, well, when I leave here, I'm gonna practice talking to white people. No matter how they treat me or no matter what they do, little Pocahontas braids or whatever, I'm just gonna practice talking to them on a human level and visiting with them. And so Indians sometimes, we kind of shy away, or we don't talk, or we step out of that zone, and have your mask on, and elbow bump or fist bump or shake hands. Or what I've been doing, even with, no matter what the color of the person is, I say, have you had 2 shots? I have 2 shots, over 2 months now. And they say, yeah. So I said, can I hug you? So I just go over, oh man, I just like hug them, just like give them hug medicine, just like hug them up. And it's interesting because maybe that's part of the healing, is just to go and hug up, and see what we have in common. See, we all breathe the same air. There is, and I don't want to discount it, because a lot of us have been hurt because of the racism and the tokenism. Shoot, I was everybody's token in my beginning of my career, that have all these white people in charge and bring me in as the token, because if they have one little brown face or one little Indian, then it means they've done their work. Bull. You gotta have a whole bunch of Indians. Anyway, so, and let's back to self-actualization. So practicing speaking to white people. Let's see, it's been 8 days I've been going out, and I just been doing that, and I swear some beautiful things have happened. Like going into an antique store where I look like however I look, and and just having a wonderful conversation, like, where are you originally from? How did you get this piece? And what have you, and then telling them, I said, I'm on a journey. I'm a guinea pig. I'm experimenting, because I have to find out in my transformation what I really want to be involved in and how I want to travel. I haven't got on a plane yet. I haven't, just how, so when we have to re-socialize. So when you're re-socializing, because, it's the summer months, and please plan something for you and your family when you're going out, that I was talking to a friend in Minnesota, and she said it was so tough with the George Floyd verdict, because they had known an hour before, and they all got a heads up, and so they were in their neighborhood. They were, just in case the verdict went the other way and there were riots, they were planning, they were putting in their children and being safe. Oh, I like some. So tell us what you're planning. Like it's graduation time. It's go to the graduations. It's going to be camping time. It's going to be fishing time. It's going to be swimming time. It's going to be gathering root medicine. It's going to be all of that. So when you're going out and re-social, my sister Lori, who you see on the Power Hour, she said, we're re-socializing. And I really, so I noticed that I've been praying and just trying to bring my best person out when I go. But one of the things is, I noticed right away the noise pollution. I noticed, because I live in a serene place, I noticed just people constantly having television, radio, noise, and talking. And I was thinking, wow, it's hard to be serene with all that noise pollution. And if you think noise pollution is normal, rethink. And so that socialization, because I was even, with our workshop, and I just want to give a shout out. I was working with RNs and CNAs and health professionals that have been working this entire time for Blackfeet Nation. And we had extra vaccine. And I think it was the Southern Pagan um, program and THIP, which is the Tribal Health Improvement Program. They had extra vaccine, and so they negotiated with the border. And thanks Jim McNeely and our tribal council, they vaccinated them, and then they got to bring people from Abutsapikani and Siksikai if they wanted, and Kainai, and they got to vaccine them last week. And they went this morning. So I want to give a shout out. They came here to retreat and to team build and to figure out how they could work better together. And this morning, 7 a.m., they're at the border, and there was a car line of Indian people that had spent the night waiting in line to get the vaccine because they don't have it available in Canada. And so that's how willing and how much they wanted to get the vaccine, to go and, get your stuff and get in your car so that they could, so they wouldn't run out, And so I was just thinking, when you go, some people stand in line to see a concert, but when you sleep overnight to get the vaccine, and they said a lot of the elders and a lot of the people that came last week were crying. They were crying because they couldn't get their vaccine where they live. So they were crying, and they were so grateful, so damn grateful, that their own Blackfoot Confederacy, their own relatives, were at the border and gave them the vaccine. And one of the women told me that, sorry, how it goes, she said they gave gifts. They gave them gifts. And I was thinking about that, here they were just so appreciative. So then those of you, reconsider, those of you not, hesitating on getting a vaccine, just think about that story. There's precious people just waiting, and some just still waiting, wishing that they could live and that we could have herd immunity. Because when we have herd immunity, it's going to be a great world where humans, and where all humans will, and we think, gosh, what has been this lesson in these 58 weeks? What has been this lesson? There's been forgiveness. I'm in a place where they have a big sign that says scatter kindness. So, you think about, how do you scatter kindness? How do you give things to be that self-actualization? So Maslow, okay, so Maslow's hierarchy of need, think about that. On that bottom rung, or that tier, is just basic food, shelter, protection. And then the other rungs, that go up, and that's the self-actualization. That's how you become a complete person. And in Blackfoot and Itsitapi, sometimes, it isn't always this. It's this. It's that the most important rung is the people. The most important are the children's, the 3-year-olds, the 2-year-olds, the 4-year-olds, the mothers, the women, the life givers. At the top. And that us, and and I was thinking, because those workers I worked with these past couple of days, the majority of them saw that their destiny was service to the people. One of them was, when our 3-year-old became missing, just for 4 days straight, went horseback and was helping all of the horseback riders look for this little dear precious Arden Peppian. And then he had to come to work. So, just everybody, all the, thank you, all the other tribes in Montana. Thank you, the National Guard. Thank you. Because of Ashley Loring Heavy Runner, we reacted different. They even have some drones looking in the water. Everybody came to help. Everybody brought food. Everybody put it on social media. And thank you, because a lot of, around the world, even the Australians that were praying and others, the prayers do work. And so think about that, and that self-actualization. Sometimes, when you're not binging on Netflix, try to stay in the prayers all day. Just praying for the goodness, praying for the forgiveness, praying for, because, in that, what's cool is, in Maslow, what happened with Maslow is he developed the hierarchy of need, and he published it, but never said where he got it from. And so, that kind of, I just want to, it's time to tell the real historical truths. And so I'll shift, and in that hierarchy, one of the rungs is the ability to love. And that's, just like the little grand nephew, 5 years old, he loves everybody. He's got that actualization. And it's not till someone shows him different to judge people by the color of their skin or the amount of money they have, or all of that kind of stuff. We're at an opportunity in 2021. All the babies that are born, 560,000 people that perished from COVID, over 560,000 babies were born. And we're at a place where we can, as families, decide that this child, this innocent, we're going to raise them different and not put in the patterns of isms. That's the self-actualization. And so, I hope some of what I'm saying to you rings true. And so I wanted to shift a little gear. And of course, let's see, I'm in a place where I can't really see the time, but that's okay. I'll just go forever. Hey. I only get to an hour. So I wanted to shift a little gear, and it has to do with an organization in Montana. And so I want to give a shout out to the Montana Racial Equity Program that has a staff of half African Americans and half Native. So it's like BIPOC, and BIPOC is Black Indigenous People of Color. And here they are, Black Indigenous People of Color, and they're trying to do, I would call it healing work, and they're doing it. And so you can look them up. They're in Bozeman, Montana, and their executive director is a fabulous woman named Judith Hellman. And she has a fabulous husband named John, who has done, diligently also worked with tribal people. I just visited them a couple of days ago, and I drove to their home, because that's what I've been doing. I really miss people, so I've been on this journey, and I'm coming to you now in between. I'm on my 10th day of just journeying. I went to go see my friends. And you know what she made me? Oh my God, mango ice cream. With real mango. She made me mango ice cream. But I wanted to speak a little bit, because when we were visiting, for about 5 hours. And we have some work to do in front of us. And so I'm mentioning them because they have healing experiences, training, they have all kinds of different terms, and Native Wellness does too. I mean, we're in it for the healing, because we've had Mark Harris on. I was thinking about Maroons, and I have to say, Mark Harris, I came here And what did I see? There was a food truck that sold Jamaican food. And I'm just so excited to be able to eat different foods. So I went there, and the brother was from Jamaica and married to a Salish woman. And so I said, "Oh, maroon." And then he looks at me like, "Okay, you must know something." He said, "Yeah, the Maroons, they're, half Jamaican or African American and half Native." He said, "We have whole communities of Maroons, and they're just like Indian people." He said, "That's why I think me and my wife get along so well, and we love each other so much. And now our children, he said they're self-actualizing by learning their Jamaican way, and they're self-actualizing by learning their Indian ways." And so in that self-actualization, and I'm just thinking of Sidney Stone Brown right now, is let's start with the values. In values in every tribe, yeah, we hear, respect and what I'd like you to consider, Native Wellness Institute, because that's why we always bring, positive, productive, and proactive. Think about the behavior of self-actualization and the behavior of, even helping at the beginning of with a child, the beginning of, getting their Indian name, raising them in a cradle board, nursing them. My grandma, the midwife, she would always say, "Cow's milk is for cows and human milk is for humans." And I just remember these things she used to say, nurturing from the time our children to having respect for all different colors, that it's okay to make friends. Because we start to give messages, some of our friends that maybe aren't as prosperous, we start pulling our children, "You can't play with those children." So maybe we have to just go along with our children and say, play with everybody. Be there, guide them. Let them listen to the stories. Let them, because just in my own experience on relocation, when I was 7.5 years old, I was trying to think, how come I value diversity? My first, because everyone was African American and I was only Blackfeet. I had social shock, and that was just shocking. But once I started, being 8 years old and being 9 years old, one of my first friends was Hawaiian, and I just remember going to her house, and so I had to learn to eat with chopsticks, which is, I love eating with chopsticks. But when she came to my house, I just remember, her taking the plate, and she took like a fork, and she didn't know what to do with it, and she just shoveled it in and learned to eat with a fork. But all of those, going to Ruthie Puel, I went to her home, and I didn't know what green chili was, and so I put a whole bunch, and it was really hot. I just remember, thinking my mouth was on fire and running to the faucet and pouring water. And then her mom made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But those experiences, we have to go out and experience and live with each other, sit in each other's kitchen, visit with each other. That's part of the self-actualization now that it's a human issue. So, and I don't want to, in the political arena, we have to now look at the diversity by, everyone that we invite. We have to say, it's whatever's reflected, if we're 30% Native, then we need that representation on any political legislation. We have to look at, just now, just even with our vice president, Kamala Harris. Our world is changing. So help it change in a good way. Help our world change with this diversity and with allowing us to self-actualize, because Sidney Stone Brown, it's about having within you the values and having within you the behavior of trusting each other, re-trusting each other, talking with each other, communicating with each other. And and I'm just sharing because that's what I've been trying to do on this trip that I'm on, because I'm just trying to look at because I'm getting older, so I have so many requests right now, double, triple booked. And so if you're trying to, go through Native Wellness Institute, we're trying to look at a better way to help everybody, and not just next week, just like, okay, come next week, or if you want to be part of our team, send us your resume, show us, because we're interested in an experience of working with indigenous and tribal people in healing. And so this organization that I spoke of, I was just, they want me to help sometime in July. So in self-actualization, one of the things that I've learned is you have to ponder. And by ponder is to pray about it, is to really think about it, because even though I've worked with diversity, and I was thinking, I was like a probation officer in East Oakland, and would go out, and when one of, my probationees didn't show up, I would go out looking for them, and they were young people. And I was thinking about it now, like, I went out because my goal was to rehabilitate that young person. And they were usually African American, it was to rehabilitate them so that they could be a productive citizen in Oakland. But I was just thinking, I didn't have any fear, and you think about, a young woman going wherever. It was just like, because I would just start visiting. I just go out there, and I would say, I'm looking for so-and-so, because we're working on helping him rectify or clean up the wreckage of the past, and we want him to have a long, healthy life. And so in part of that humanness, or that human behavior, just think about, now in 2021 with your family, even the prayers that you have right now, because, I was listening to Jesse Jackson, and I was thinking, along since Martin Luther King in the 60s, and then I was looking at all the young Black Lives Matter. And so part of the self-actualization is maybe we really got to make arenas where we just listen to each other. And listen, why we have two of these and one of these, and listen to their story. Our brother Gene and my sister Lori are always saying we have to listen to each other's story. And listen to their story, and look at the points where we can help each other, or where there's commonness, or where there's the sameness. And I was I'll tell a story. I remember when my sister was taking a course from Angela Davis, and this was a healing story, and almost everyone in the class was African American. And my sister, and they realized at some point in this class that they all had similar historical, so that's why it's important to know someone's history. They all had historical wounds, and the day in that class, they realized that every African American person that was in that class, that their grandfather had been lynched. And that wound was still in the family. And then, here's, my sister with, they almost wiped us out. There was just a little over 1,000 of us in 1924. Just a couple hundred of Batsapikani at Brockett. And just 800 Kainai. And there wasn't that many. They almost wiped us out. They gave us the blankets with smallpox. Yeah, they gave us tuberculosis. Yeah, we survived those epidemics. But I just think about, that knowing each other's history. And so maybe, in school, like I'm a student. I still I still make make it possible that we learn all the correct history. We're not going to do the Columbus thing. Is almost Columbus did did not discover America. In fact, he brought STDs. No, STDs started with Columbus. I just so think about the excitement of learning learning everyone's history. And when we learn history, like we learn the history of slavery, we learn the history of Mexico. We learn the history of if there was French people that came in. We learn the history if there was British people that came in, and knowing that, but we also learn the correct history of the indigenous. One of the beautiful things of this COVID is, there are so many tribal people, and I heard this come from the Washington area. They said, well, yeah, well, before we had the vaccine, they said, well, they're looking for the vaccine. We already have the vaccine. And they were talking about bringing people who couldn't breathe or who had so much phlegm from having COVID, bringing them into the sweat lodge and putting bear root out, putting all of the other medicines, Miniguppy, a good breathing medicine, sneezing root, giving them these medicines, and then they could cough up that phlegm, and they got better. One of the beauties of learning about each other's culture is learning about how each culture healed. Especially around mental health. Now we're all learning mindfulness, we're learning EMDR, and we're learning all of these methodologies. And all of those methodologies happen in ceremony. Native American Church, Longhouse, Okan, Sundance. So start to think about, the what we can share with each other. And it's not like, this isn't run with wolves who are all going to try to make you Lakota, right? Or try to bring you in and into a sweat, and like that one guy that sizzled all those people. Think about in 2021 how we recreate the ceremony of civility, of camaraderie, where we allow each other to exist equally. And that's been kind of, Native Wellness Institute, our message, this 58 weeks, I want to just give a shout out to our team. 58 weeks, we started out, our team, positive, productive, proactive, power hours. And so today, it was just, it's a message around our human responsibility and that self-actualization. I was part of, a lot of people, because of the equinox and the solstice ceremonies, like right now, there's a lot of ceremony happening. Maybe fast for a day and pray for what your transformation has been. I know young people are, some of the ceremonies that are going to happen this summer, they're fasting. And remember, some of our people are leaving us. They're dying. And so part of this, you have to pass the baton to the younger people, to the newer ones. And so passing the baton is your stories. Passing the baton is your experience. And even though passing the baton is shadowing that person while they're doing what you could do, but you're teaching them so that when you pass, everything is left intact with that next generation. That's transfer. But one of the, I'd just like to say, think about all your apprentices. and of course our children, our biological children, but think about all of your apprentices that you have out there, and the new apprentices, that are asking for stuff. One of I have a short story. Um, this young woman was in the mid, like 18, or not 8, 1984, 1985, 1986. She was a teenager that was trained to talk about fetal alcohol syndrome, and a whole team of them. The New Generations program is still going at Tule River. I was thinking this year, I think she's going to turn 50 in September, but that whole crew of teenagers, because of the education that they went out and did and stood up before other teenagers, and young men, young women, and told their story and did exercises. She she's the living testimony, a mother, going to be a grandmother, has a good husband. I think I was just thinking, because there's that generational, and some of you, I've said this before. I in Roger Prairie Chicken, in that circle of life where this is 0, 25 years old, 50, 75, and 100. Think about the rites of passage, and some thought, because we're going to have the memorials, but also we should have the name givings, we should have the weddings, we should have the graduations, we should have the celebrations. I won't name names, but some of my friends, I have this couple. They remade a vow with each other. He went and got a really nice ring. They've been together a long time, but they were not getting along, and they were working things out, and they're during this pandemic, and so they decided to re-up their vow of being together. And it's a beautiful thing, because he went and got a ring, and they just said, okay, we're re-upping, and I wouldn't call it like marriage. We're dedicated, where I'm just going to be with you and help you grow, and I'm just going to be with you and help you grow. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because some of us, we might have decided that divorce was the best thing now that we all had to spend that time together. But do it in a good way. So I guess I'm in a peaceful place today, and so the topic of today, I apologize. So I guess I'm going to ask someone to tell me what time it is. I literally am in a place where we don't. I think it's been around the hour, and we come to you, Native Wellness Institute. This Power Hour comes every day, Monday through Friday. We've been here during the whole pandemic, and what would like to ask of you is that would like to ask you to tell us what you've been healing from. Please tell us. All right, 4:12 East Coast time, so that I've gone over a tad, but that's okay. Would like to interact with you. We're sign up, for some of our training. Talk to us, call us. We're in one of the things, and this is for free, and is on YouTube, Native Wellness Institute. Our Power Hours are all available, and they're all healing, and you can go back and you can see all of them, and you can go to our Facebook page, and we're just we're open-heartedly, our heart is open to you to do some more healing. And our mission is to keep the teachings of our ancestors alive. And I'm just feeling really good, like I'm an auntie right now to all of you. Like I'm your auntie, not the auntie that comes in the room and you sit up straight, but I'm just the auntie here to listen. And I feel a lot of love, I feel a lot of peace, and I'm ready to work on some of this racism, sexism, and this other ism. And so I don't know, I just feel really good energy from everyone. I can feel you. But it's time to close. And so with that, I'll say kita kito matsuno, and I will be seeing you soon. And kitsikako, mem. I love you.